They say cancel culture destroys people, but what if that's not the real story? What if some people need to be destroyed not as punishment, but as preparation for who they're supposed to become? Maya Chen built her identity on a foundation of digital smoke and mirrors, measuring her worth in metrics that meant nothing and influence she never earned. When that foundation crumbled in a single devastating night, she discovered a truth that changes everything about how we understand failure, forgiveness, and the price of authentic transformation. Hidden beneath the brutal mathematics of public shaming lies a secret that could revolutionize how we think about accountability. Sometimes the people who fall the hardest are the ones who rise the strongest. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to your reputation is the best thing that happens to your character. But this kind of transformation demands a sacrifice that most people aren't willing to make. It requires choosing service over self-interest, community over comeback, becoming someone worthy of influence instead of simply reclaiming it. The real question isn't whether Maya Chen will survive her cancellation. It's whether the rest of us are ready for what she discovered in the wreckage. The Phoenix Paradox. My phone buzzed against the nightstand at 3:47 a.m., pulling me from the kind of deep sleep that only comes after 18-hour days and 3 energy drinks. The notification light pulsed red in my darkened Los Angeles apartment, cutting through the blackout curtains like a digital heartbeat. I was Maya Chen, 22 years old, with 2.3 million TikTok followers, and a bank account that had more commas than my high school math teacher ever dreamed I'd see. 3 years ago, I was dancing in my childhood bedroom in Sacramento, posting videos between community college classes. Now I lived in a Beverly Hills adjacent apartment with a ring light that cost more than my mom's monthly rent. The first notification made my stomach drop. Then my phone erupted. Buzz, 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 buzz. The screen lit up like a slot machine hitting jackpot, except instead of coins, it was spilling my reputation all over the floor. 5,000 notifications, 10,000, 15,000. The number climbed faster than my follower count ever had. Comments flooded my latest video, the one I'd posted 12 hours ago before falling into bed, exhausted from a brand event in West Hollywood. A simple dance routine to Summer Vibes by DJ Nox. 30 seconds of choreography I'd learnt from my friend Zara. Nothing I hadn't done 1,000 times before. But I hadn't listened to the full song. I hadn't researched DJ Nox. I hadn't checked the news. How could you dance to this right now? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Read the first comment, with 847 angry face reactions. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled down, each comment hitting like a physical blow. DJ Nox literally got arrested for assault yesterday, and you're promoting his music? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Maya Chen celebrating an abuser. Disgusting. This is why we can't trust influencers. No research, no responsibility. Dancing while women are crying. Delete this. My follower count flashed at the top of the screen like a casino display. 2.3 million, 2.2 million, 2.1 million. The numbers fell in real time, each lost follower a small death. I searched DJ Nox arrest with shaking fingers. The headlines made my throat close. DJ Nox arrested for domestic violence. Producer charged with assault against ex-girlfriend. Nox's history of abuse allegations surfaces. The arrest had happened 18 hours ago. While I was at the brand event sipping champagne and planning content, Rebecca Martinez, a 20-year-old aspiring singer, was in the hospital with a broken nose and 2 black eyes, courtesy of the man whose music I was cheerfully dancing to for my millions of impressionable followers. The timing couldn't have been worse. The optics couldn't have been more damaging. The mistake couldn't have been more public. I opened Twitter. My name was trending. Hashtag Maya Chen is over. Had 50k tweets and counting. Instagram stories mentioned me every few seconds. YouTube videos with my face in the thumbnail were already being uploaded. Maya Chen's disgusting response to abuse, and why Maya Chen must be cancelled. My phone rang. Unknown number. Maya. The voice was strained, older. This is Janet Martinez, Rebecca's mother. The world tilted. I sat up straighter, my voice barely working. Mrs. Martinez, my daughter is in the hospital, she said quietly. And this morning she woke up to see you dancing happily to the music of the man who put her there. She's 20 years old, Maya. She has 1 million followers who look up to her. And now they're seeing you celebrate her abuser. The phone slipped in my sweaty palm. I didn't know. I swear I had no idea about the arrest. I would never... But you did, she said, and her words cut deeper than any comment. You posted it. You put it out there. And now my daughter, who's already been through hell, gets to watch the internet forget about her pain and focus on your mistake. The line went dead. I stared at my reflection in the black phone screen, disheveled hair, puffy eyes, the kind of exhausted desperation that no filter could fix. This wasn't about me anymore. It had never been about me. Chapter 2. The Silence. The weight of silence settled over my apartment like dust after an explosion. Outside, Los Angeles continued its relentless pace. Traffic humming along Sunset Boulevard, coffee shops opening, people living their lives while mine crumbled in real time. I pulled the blackout curtains tighter, creating a cocoon of darkness that felt appropriate for what I was experiencing. Days blurred together in a haze of refused calls and unopened emails. My apartment became a bunker, door locked against the world that wanted my head on a pike. The only light came from my laptop screen as I fell into a research hole that would have been impossible to climb out of, even if I'd wanted to. David had been texting every hour. We need to respond. Silence is making it worse. Brands are pulling out. Each message felt like water torture, persistent, maddening, designed to break me down. But Rebecca Martinez's mother had taught me something in that devastating phone call. This wasn't about saving my career. This was about understanding the weight of the damage I'd caused. I spent those first 3 days researching, not for comeback strategies or crisis management techniques, but for the truth I should have found before hitting post. DJ Knox, real name Kevin Knox Williams, had a history. 5 different women had accused him of physical and emotional abuse over the past 3 years. The music industry had mostly looked the other way because his tracks went viral, and viral meant money. Summer Vibes, the song I'd danced to, had been recorded just 2 weeks after his first assault charge. Rebecca Martinez had been his girlfriend for 6 months. An aspiring musician with 800,000 Instagram followers and a voice that reminded people of young Billie Eilish. According to the police report, Knox had attacked her after she threatened to leave him, breaking her nose and giving her a concussion that landed her in the ER. While she was lying in a hospital bed, I was spinning around my apartment to her abuser's music. The internet had moved on to newer scandals by day 4, a politician's affair, a celebrity's tax problems, but the damage to my reputation was permanent. My follower count had stabilized at 900,000, less than half of what I'd built over 3 years. Brand deals worth $300,000 had evaporated overnight. My YouTube channel was shadow banned, my reach artificially limited by algorithms that now classified me as controversial content. The isolation was suffocating. I'd built my entire identity around connection, likes, comments, shares, the constant feedback loop of digital validation. Now I existed in a vacuum, cut off from the audience that had defined my worth for 3 years. The silence felt heavier than any criticism. Chapter 3. Accountability. The apology video took 7 hours to film. Not because I kept messing up, but because I kept starting over, making sure every word was honest, every moment authentic. I didn't use my ring light, didn't do my makeup, didn't script my words. Just me, sitting in my living room, looking into my phone camera and telling the truth. The raw, unfiltered truth that felt foreign after years of curated perfection. I want to talk about what happened, I began, my voice smaller than it had ever sounded in a video, not to defend myself, but to acknowledge the real harm I caused. I talked about Rebecca Martinez, about the responsibility that comes with a platform, about the difference between making a mistake and being careless with other people's pain. I didn't make excuses. I didn't ask for sympathy. I just told the truth about what I'd learned in 5 days of forced reflection. I hurt someone who was already hurting, I said near the end. I gave power and profit to someone who deserved neither. And I did it because I treated my platform like a game instead of recognizing it as a responsibility. I posted the video at 3:47 a.m. exactly, 1 week after the world had ended. The response was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Not the explosive virality of my previous content, but something quieter and more profound. Comments from abuse survivors thanking me for acknowledging the real harm. Messages from other creators admitting they'd made similar careless mistakes. Even a few industry professionals expressing respect for my honesty. though they made it clear this wouldn't translate to professional opportunities anytime soon. Chapter 4. Community Service. The settlement negotiations with Rebecca Martinez's family began in October, conducted through lawyers in sterile conference rooms that smelled of industrial carpet and disappointment. My legal team advised fighting the emotional distress claim, arguing that my intent hadn't been malicious, but sitting across from Rebecca's mother in that beige-walled room, I couldn't bring myself to minimize the harm I'd caused. We'd like to propose a settlement that includes community service, I told my lawyer after our third meeting, something focused on supporting survivors of domestic violence. The final settlement included 120 hours of community service at organizations serving domestic violence survivors, plus a financial contribution to expand their programs. My lawyer called it unprecedented cooperation. I called it the bare minimum of accountability. The community center in East LA, where I'd been assigned, looked rough from the outside, a converted warehouse with security grates on the windows and a parking lot that had seen better decades. Inside, the floors were scuffed linoleum and the walls needed paint, but something about the space felt more real than any studio or brand event I'd ever experienced. Ms. Rodriguez, the program director, was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of direct gaze that made pretense impossible. She'd been running youth programs in this neighborhood for 15 years and had seen plenty of celebrities and influencers come through for photo ops and court-mandated service. "You can dance, right?" she asked on my first day, looking me up and down with undisguised skepticism. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. These kids need someone who can actually teach them something useful, not just take selfies with them." The program served teenagers from the surrounding neighborhoods, many of whom had learned dance the same way I originally had, copying moves from social media, practicing in bedrooms and community spaces, dreaming of viral fame. But they had raw talent that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with movement in the first place, before metrics and monetization had complicated everything. My first class was a disaster. "So you're the cancelled girl," said Marcus, a 17-year-old with arms crossed and attitude radiating from every pore, "here to make yourself feel better about messing up." The other kids, 12 of them aged 14 to 19, watched the interaction with the keen interest of teenagers sensing drama. They knew who I was, what I'd done, why I was here. Some whispered among themselves, others stared openly, waiting to see if I was genuine or just putting on another performance. "I'm Maya," I said, standing awkwardly in the center of the mirrored room. "I'm here because I made a terrible mistake that hurt people." "So this is like your punishment?" asked Destiny, a 15-year-old with braids and a skeptical expression. I considered lying, spinning it as volunteer work or community outreach. But these kids had grown up with the internet. They could smell bullshit from across the room. "Yes," I said simply, "this is my punishment, but I hope it becomes something more than that." The honesty seemed to surprise them. The tension in the room shifted slightly, from outright hostility to cautious curiosity. "What do you want us to do?" Marcus asked. "Pretend you're not here because you have to be?" "I want you to hold me accountable," I said. "If I'm not helping you get better at dance, call me out. If I'm treating this like a photo opportunity, call me out. If I'm here for the wrong reasons, call me out." For the first few weeks, they did exactly that. When I tried to film a video during class, Destiny shut it down immediately. "Nah, Miss Maya, we're not your content." When I suggested a routine that looked good but felt empty, Carlos, a 16-year-old with natural rhythm and sharp instincts, stopped me mid-explanation. "That's Instagram dance. You said you wanted to teach us real stuff." When I showed up late one Tuesday because of traffic, Jamal didn't let it slide. "You think because you're famous we'll just wait around? Ms. Rodriguez don't play that with her classes." Each confrontation stung, but it also grounded me. These kids weren't going to let me coast on celebrity or hide behind good intentions. They demanded authentic effort, and slowly, very slowly, I began to deliver it. Chapter 5. Finding Purpose. The breakthrough came in my second month, during a session where I was trying to help Destiny develop a piece about her experience helping raise her younger siblings while her mother worked 3 jobs. "It's not about the moves," I found myself saying as she struggled with a sequence that looked technically correct but felt emotionally empty. "It's about what your body is trying to say, that your voice can't." Something clicked. Destiny's movement shifted from mechanical to meaningful, her technique serving the story instead of just showing off her skill. Watching her discover that connection, that dance could be a language for experiences that words couldn't capture, reminded me why I'd fallen in love with movement in the first place. "That's it," I said as she finished, slightly out of breath. "That's your voice." "But it's not like the viral stuff," she protested. "It's better than viral stuff. It's true." That became our mantra over the following months. Not make it viral, but make it true. The kids began developing pieces that reflected their actual lives, their real struggles and dreams, rather than copying whatever was trending on TikTok. Carlos worked on a routine that explored growing up between two cultures, his movement flowing between traditional Mexican folk dance and contemporary styles in ways that felt both personal and universal. Jamal, who'd been battling anxiety about college applications, created a piece that translated his fears and hopes into motion that was both vulnerable and powerful. The work was slow, frustrating. Some days the kids were more interested in their phones than in finding their authentic voices. Other days I struggled to connect, falling back into teacher mode instead of meeting them where they were. Ms. Rodriguez watched it all with her characteristic directness, offering feedback that was always honest and occasionally brutal. "You're trying too hard to be their friend," she told me after a particularly difficult session where half the class had been distracted and unengaged. "They don't need another friend, they need someone who believes in them enough to push them." "You're still performing," she said another time after I'd gotten frustrated and raised my voice when Marcus was being disruptive. "Stop trying to be the perfect teacher and just be present." Her observations cut deep because they were accurate. I was still operating from the same mentality that had dominated my platform days, focused on how I appeared rather than what I was actually contributing. Winter brought a different rhythm to our sessions. The community centre's heating was inconsistent, so we often practiced in layers, breath visible in the chilly air. But the work continued, deepening with each passing week. What had started as court-mandated service was becoming something I looked forward to more than any brand deal I'd ever secured. The first time one of the kids posted about the program on their own social media, I felt a pride that was different from any engagement metrics I'd ever celebrated. When people ask who taught me this, Destiny had written on her Instagram story, sharing a video of her resilience piece. I tell them about Miss Maya, the teacher who lost everything but found her purpose. Chapter 6: Collaboration. The coffee shop in West Hollywood buzzed with the kind of energy that made my palms sweat. I sat across from Emma Rodriguez, a lifestyle creator with 4.2 million followers and the kind of pristine reputation that made her managers nervous about meeting with me. The contrast between us was stark and impossible to ignore. Emma looked like success, perfectly styled hair catching the cafe's Instagram-worthy lighting, designer athleisure that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month, the confident posture of someone whose brand was ascending rather than buried 6 feet under public opinion. I, on the other hand, looked like exactly what I was, a cautionary tale in progress. My clothes were clean but unremarkable, purchased from Target rather than sent by brands. My hair was styled by me in my bathroom mirror, not by a team of professionals. "I'll be honest," Emma said, stirring her oat milk latte. "My team thinks this is career suicide." Her words stung, but I'd expected them. 18 months post-scandal, I was still digital poison. Other creators avoided me like a contagious disease, afraid that association would contaminate their own carefully cultivated brands. "I understand the concern," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "What made you agree to meet anyway?" Emma studied my face with the intensity of someone who'd built a career reading people through camera lenses. "Your community center videos." I blinked in surprise. "I haven't posted any community center videos. Not publicly." She showed me her phone screen. But Destiny Martinez shared clips on her story, tagged the community center, mentioned her dance teacher. I did some digging. The screenshot showed a video I'd never seen before. Destiny performing the resilience routine we'd worked on together, shot from her phone in the community center mirror. Her caption read, "When people ask who taught me this, I tell them about Miss Maya, the teacher who lost everything but found her purpose." She wasn't the only one. Emma scrolled through clip after clip, my students performing routines we'd developed together, explaining concepts I'd taught them, growing into confident creators in their own right. Their content was raw, unpolished by professional standards, but it pulsed with authenticity that felt more valuable than any brand partnership I'd ever secured. "They're incredible," I managed. "They are," Emma agreed. "But what interests me is how you're teaching them. Not just dance, but how to use their voices responsibly, how to create with intention, instead of just chasing metrics." The proposal she laid out was unlike any collaboration I'd done in my platform heyday. Not a brand partnership or trending challenge, but a documentary-style series about the community centre program. Emma would handle the filming and production. I would provide access and context. The kids would be the stars. "What's the angle?" I asked. "Authentic influence," Emma said. "Showing what happens when creators use their platforms to build something meaningful instead of just building themselves up. Your story becomes part of it, but not the center of it." I spent 3 days thinking about the offer. It represented everything I thought I wanted. A pathway back to relevance, creative partnership with a major creator, content that could reach millions again. But something made me hesitate. "I need to talk to the kids first," I finally told her. "And Miss Rodriguez, this is their program, their stories. I won't exploit them for my comeback." Emma's expression shifted, and for the first time in our conversation she looked genuinely impressed. The Maya Chen from 2 years ago wouldn't have said that. The Maya Chen from 2 years ago made a lot of mistakes. Chapter 7. Trust. The emergency meeting at the community centre felt different from our usual sessions. The kids sat in our customary circle, but the energy was tenser, more formal. Miss Rodriguez had her arms crossed, wearing the expression she saved for evaluating new donors or volunteers who might have hidden agendas. "So there's an opportunity," I began, and explained Emma's proposal in detail. "But this only happens if you want it to happen. Your comfort and privacy come first." The discussion that followed revealed how much these kids had grown in their understanding of digital platforms and personal agency. They'd watched my rise and fall in real time, learned from my mistakes, developed their own ethical frameworks around content creation. Destiny worried about becoming internet famous before she was ready. What if people start following me for the wrong reasons? What if I can't handle the pressure? Carlos was excited about potentially reaching other young dancers. Maybe kids in other neighborhoods could see what we're doing here and start their own programs. Jamal wanted guarantees about how they'd be portrayed. "I don't want this to be like those charity videos where rich people feel good about helping poor kids. We're not props for your redemption story." "What do you get out of it, Miss Maya?" asked Sophia, a 14-year-old who'd started attending classes recently. The question demanded honesty. I looked around the circle at faces that had become dear to me, kids who'd taught me more about authentic influence than any marketing course ever could. Honestly, probably some positive press, maybe a chance to rebuild my platform. I met each of their eyes, but what I want most is for people to see what I see, that you're incredible artists with your own voices and stories. Marcus, who'd been quiet during most of the discussion, finally spoke up. "And if it goes wrong? If the comments get nasty or people start drama?" "Then it's my responsibility," I said immediately. "I'll take the heat, you can step back any time." The kids voted to move forward, but with conditions that demonstrated their sophisticated understanding of media manipulation. They would have input on how they were portrayed, veto power over any content featuring them, and a guarantee that a portion of any revenue would go toward expanding the community center's programs. "These kids understand creator economics better than most adults in the industry," Emma said when I relayed their demands. "That tells me you've been teaching them well." But the collaboration nearly fell apart before it began. Emma arrived with her crew 2 weeks later, a small professional team that specialized in documentary-style content. The moment the cameras appeared, the dynamic in the room shifted. The kids became self-conscious, performing rather than practicing. Their natural chemistry disappeared behind the anxiety of being watched and judged. "This isn't working," Marcus muttered after a particularly awkward warm-up session. "We look fake." He was right. The magic I'd hoped to capture, the authentic growth, the real connections, the genuine artistic development, was disappearing under the weight of documentation. "Maybe we should call it off," I told Emma during a break. "I won't let them be uncomfortable for the sake of content." But Destiny had a different idea. "What if we ignore the cameras?" she suggested. "Like, actually ignore them, just do class like normal, and let them film whatever happens." The shift was subtle but transformative. Instead of performing for the lens, the kids simply did what they always did, worked on their craft with focus and joy that couldn't be manufactured. Emma's team adapted, becoming invisible observers rather than intrusive documentarians. Slowly, the real work emerged. Destiny explaining her choreographic process with natural confidence, Carlos demonstrating techniques he'd developed independently, Jamal improvising routines that made Emma's videographer whisper, "Are you getting this?" The trust that had taken months to build was fragile, though one careless comment from a crew member about inspiring stories from the inner city nearly shut down the entire project. "We're not your inspiration porn," Marcus told me bluntly. "If that's what this becomes, we're out." I spent an hour that evening talking with Emma about representation and respect, about the difference between showcasing talent and exploiting struggle. The conversation was uncomfortable but necessary, revealing assumptions we both carried about community work and social impact content. "We need to do better," Emma admitted. "This has to be about amplifying their voices, not translating them for a mainstream audience." Chapter 8: Recognition. The notification came at exactly 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning 6 months after filming began. I was at the community center, helping Carlos perfect a sequence he'd choreographed for his college audition, when my phone buzzed. Emma had uploaded our first collaboration video. The title read, "What Happens When a Cancelled Creator Finds Their Purpose?" 12 minutes of documentary-style content showcasing the community center program, with Emma's signature professional polish and my awkward but honest narration threading through the kids' performances. "Want to watch it together?" I asked, though my stomach churned with familiar anxiety. We gathered around my laptop in the community center's main room. Ms. Rodriguez joined us, along with several parents who'd become invested in the program's success. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone understood that this moment could either validate months of work or expose it as another failed experiment. The video opened with Emma's voiceover explaining how she'd discovered the community center through social media breadcrumbs, then cut to wide shots of the kids in rehearsal. But instead of exploitative inspiration porn, the editing showcased their artistry with genuine respect. "I never thought about dance as storytelling before I met Miss Maya," Destiny said to the camera, demonstrating a movement sequence that translated her experience with family responsibility into physical expression. "She taught us that our bodies can say things our voices can't." The footage of me teaching looked different than I'd expected. Gone was the performative energy of my old platform days, replaced by something more grounded. I was actually listening to the kids, responding to their needs, building their confidence rather than showcasing my own skills. But what struck me most was how the video handled my scandal. Emma didn't shy away from it, but she didn't sensationalize it either. The context was clear. I was here because I'd made a mistake, but the focus remained on what had grown from that failure. "Maya Chen lost her platform for making a careless mistake," Emma explained. "But she found something more valuable, a purpose that serves others instead of just serving her ego." The comments started flowing immediately, not the usual toxic mix I'd grown accustomed to, but something more thoughtful. People were responding to the kids' talent, asking how to support the community center, sharing their own stories of finding meaning after failure. One comment made my chest tight. "This is what accountability looks like. Not just apologizing, but actually changing your actions." And then, from an account I recognized, "Thank you for showing that people can grow, Rebecca Martinez, the woman whose pain had catalyzed my transformation. She'd watched the video and chosen to respond with grace I didn't deserve but desperately needed to receive." "Miss Maya," Carlos said softly, "you're crying." I wiped my eyes, laughing at my own reaction. The tears weren't just relief or gratitude. They were recognition that something genuinely meaningful had been created from the ashes of my old life. The video's success felt different from anything I'd experienced during my platform days. Instead of explosive, chaotic virality, it spread steadily, shared by people who connected with its message about redemption and service. The growth felt organic, sustainable, built on substance rather than spectacle. But the real impact was quieter, more personal. Other community centers reached out asking for program development help. Young creators sent messages about shifting their focus from personal branding to community service. Parents thanked me for modeling what accountability could look like. "So what's next?" Ms. Rodriguez asked as we cleaned up after that week's class. I considered the question while stacking chairs, a routine that had become meditative. "I think I want to expand this," I said. "Help other cancelled creators find ways to serve communities instead of just trying to rebuild their platforms." "That's a business model." "It could be. Teaching people that losing their platform might be the best thing that ever happened to their character." Chapter 9. Setbacks and Growth. The speaking engagement at USC seemed like a natural next step. 6 months after Emma's documentary, I'd been invited to guest lecture for a media ethics and social responsibility course. 200 students, most of them aspiring creators themselves, gathered to hear about accountability and authentic influence. It was a disaster. "How many of you want to be famous?" I asked the assembled faces. Nearly every hand went up. "How many of you want to be influential?" The same hands remained raised, confusion evident on their faces. "Fame and influence are different things," I continued. "Fame is about being known. Influence is about creating change." I was 20 minutes into the presentation when a student near the back raised her hand. "But don't you miss it? The money, the lifestyle, the actual reach you had?" The question hit differently than I'd expected. Standing in front of 200 faces, I felt the old familiar hunger for validation, for applause, for the rush of connecting with a massive audience. For a moment, the community center work felt small in comparison. I started, then stopped. The honest answer was complicated. Yes, sometimes I miss it. I miss the creative freedom that financial security provides. I miss reaching people who might have needed to hear certain messages. "So why not try to get it back?" another student called out. "Why stay cancelled if you could rebuild?" The room fell silent, waiting for my response. I realized I'd been asking myself the same question for months, especially as opportunities had started returning. Brand partnerships, speaking fees, potential book deals, all dangled in front of me like carrots, requiring only that I lean into my redemption story. "Because," I said slowly, working through the answer as I spoke, "I'm not sure the person who could get that back is someone I want to be anymore." The lecture limped to its conclusion, leaving both the students and me unsatisfied. In the Q&A, their questions grew sharper, more challenging. Several students seemed skeptical of my motives, wondering aloud if community service was just another form of personal branding. Driving back to East LA that evening, I felt defeated. Maybe I was fooling myself. Maybe the transformation I thought I'd undergone was just another performance, another way of managing my image. The funk lasted for weeks. My teaching at the community center suffered as I second-guessed every interaction, wondering if I was genuinely helping or just feeding my own need to be useful, to be valued, to matter. "You're different," Marcus observed after a particularly lackluster class. "Like distant or something?" Mrs. Rodriguez was more direct. "You having second thoughts about this work?" "Maybe," I admitted. "Maybe I'm just fooling myself about what I'm doing here." "Maybe," she agreed. "Or maybe you're just figuring out that doing good work doesn't make you a good person automatically. The work has to keep earning that every day." Her words stung because they were true. I'd been treating my transformation like a destination rather than an ongoing process, as if 18 months of service had permanently fixed whatever was broken in me. The real test came when David, my former manager, called with an offer that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. "Netflix wants to option your story," he said without preamble. "Limited series, A-list producers attached, 8-figure deal if it gets picked up." The silence stretched between us as I processed what he was saying. Financial security, creative control, a platform to share my story with millions of people. Everything I'd thought I wanted. "What would the angle be?" I asked. "Redemption arc. Cancelled creator finds her way back to relevance through community service. Feel-good ending, inspiration for other people who've made mistakes." The description made my skin crawl. So the kids become props in my comeback story? Maya, this is a chance to have real influence again. Think about the message you could share, the people you could reach. I spent 3 sleepless nights considering the offer. The money would solve every financial anxiety I'd carried since the scandal. The platform would allow me to share lessons about accountability and growth with audiences who might never visit a community center in East LA. But every time I imagined the kids' faces on screen, performing their stories for the entertainment of viewers who'd never meet them, I felt sick. "I'm passing," I told David. "Maya, you're making a mistake. This could set you up for life." Maybe. But taking it would be a different mistake, one I've already made before. After hanging up, I sat in my Silver Lake apartment, wondering if I'd just thrown away my only chance at real redemption. The doubt was crushing, but it also felt familiar. This was the same uncertainty I'd felt during my first weeks at the community centre, when every interaction had been awkward and forced. Growth, I was learning, wasn't linear. It came in waves, with setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of clarity followed by periods of confusion. The person who danced carelessly to an abuser's music wasn't completely gone. She was just learning slowly to make different choices. Chapter 10. Deeper Understanding. 2 years into my work at the community centre, I thought I understood what I was doing there. I was teaching dance, mentoring young people, finding purpose through service. The narrative felt clean, redemptive, satisfying. Then I met Alaya. She was 16, new to the program, carrying herself with the kind of guarded posture that suggested experience with disappointment. Her application listed her as interested in commercial dance and social media growth, which immediately put me on alert. I'd seen too many kids chase viral fame, only to discover its emptiness. "I want to build my platform," she told me directly during our first one-on-one session. "Get to 1 million followers, make enough money to help my mum pay rent." The honesty was refreshing, even if the goal made me uncomfortable. "What kind of content do you want to create?" "Dance videos. Maybe some lifestyle stuff, whatever gets engagement." I found myself giving her the same lecture I'd delivered to dozens of kids over the past 2 years, about authentic expression versus algorithmic manipulation, about sustainable creativity versus viral moments, about the difference between influence and fame. She listened politely, then asked, "Did you make money when you were famous?" "Yes." "A lot of money?" "Yes." "So why shouldn't I want that too?" The question exposed something I'd been avoiding. My own privilege in being able to reject traditional success. I had savings from my platform days, family support, a safety net that allowed me to choose meaning over money,